This day in sports history. This episode is brought to you by the Sterling Soap Company. Christmas will be here before you know it, and you know what would make a great stocking stuffer for everybody in your family? Sterling Soap. From bar soap to shave soap, beard balm to lip balm, aftershaves and lotions, Sterling Soap has something for everyone on your list. Check out their seasonal soaps that will complement the scents of your home this holiday season. And they're more than just soap. They also have a full line of coffee straight from the Sterling Roastery. Find their full line of products at sterlingsoapcompany.com. Hey there, this is Steve White, your host for the one and only daily sports history podcast dedicated to taking you back to the greatest moments in sports. It's November 26th, and this day is so packed with great memories, I had to leave several on the shelf for future editions. But this episode does have controversy, fantastic comebacks, and some sweet revenge. So let's start with what happened on this day in 1998 when something got lost in translation during the coin toss. This was a Thanksgiving Day game between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Detroit Lions, and through 4 quarters, this had not been a great game. There weren't a whole lot of points on the board. The Steelers' Jerome Bettis had only rushed for 67 yards on 26 carries. Quarterback Cordell Stewart threw for 2 1/4 and a touchdown, but he was picked off once and sacked 5 times. Detroit's Barry Sanders only rushed for 33 yards on the day, with 21 of those coming on 1 play. Charlie Batch had thrown for 236 and a touchdown, but he'd been sacked 4 times. The only guy who had a decent day offensively was Herman Moore, with his 8 catches for 148 yards and a touchdown. So at the end of regulation, the score was tied at 16. The captains came out for the coin toss to determine who would get the football first, and what happened next would live in infamy and also lead to a change in procedure. Here's Phil Luckett, who was the head ref for the game.
Who will call it from Pittsburgh? Number 36, heads, tails, tails, heads. Call it plays in the air. Heads is the call. He said heads, it is a tails.
Oh, I believe he said tails.
He did.
You want to take the ball?
Look at Jerome Bettis. What's going on?
You changing the head. Which way you want to go?
Oh, man.
Detroit has won the toss. We'll receive.
So it is a bit tough to hear his original call of tails in the audio replay, but everybody but Luckett seemed to hear Bettis say tails. Of course, Detroit captains Robert Porcher and Ray Robbins were not going to correct Luckett. There wasn't much that could be done in the moment, really. Luckett was sticking with, I know what I heard, and there wasn't anybody outside of the Steelers providing any sort of assistance. So, the Lions got the ball. Batch hit Moore over the middle for a 29-yard hookup into Steelers territory. But here's the thing. The Steelers nearly escaped the situation, and the whole coin toss fiasco may have been avoided if not for a face mask penalty. On a 3rd and 11, the Steelers sacked Batch close to midfield, which would have moved them out of field goal range. But a face mask call on free safety Chris Oldham negated the play, gave the Lions a first down instead, and that allowed Lions kicker Jason Hanson to kick the game-winning 42-yard field goal, and Detroit won the game 19-16. So after this game, the NFL made a few changes. The first of which was to have the visiting captain call heads or tails prior to the flip to make sure everybody was on the same page. Also, Luckett was all alone at midfield in 98, so there was no other official that could have clarified or confirmed Bettis' call. So the league made the change that 2 other officials had to be present during the coin toss. Of course, that did not help the Steelers, and whether this was the catalyst to what happened to them in the final weeks of the season or just an excuse for Steelers fans, this was the first of 5 straight losses for Pittsburgh that turned a promising 7-4 record before this game into a 7-9 record and a seat in front of the television for the playoffs. This day in sports history also had teams erasing deficits so large that even LL Cool J would call them a comeback.
Don't call it a comeback.
Okay, we won't call this first one a comeback. Instead, this came to be known as the CAMback. It was the 2010 Iron Bowl game between Alabama and Auburn. The Tigers were led by SEC Player of the Year and soon-to-be named Heisman Trophy winner Cam Newton. The Tigers were number 2 in the country and entered the game with a perfect 11-0 record. Bama was the defending national champ and had started the season as the top-ranked team in the country, but a couple of league losses dropped them to number 9 in the polls. The Crimson Tide captured some of that early season magic in the first 25 minutes and rolled out to a 24-0 lead. The dream season for the Tigers was on the brink of slipping away. Newton got the Tigers on the scoreboard with a touchdown toss with a little over 5 minutes to play on the half, and it was 24-7 at the break. How different things may have been, though, had Nick Fairley not sacked Alabama quarterback Greg McElroy and forced a fumble and then recovered it deep in Tiger territory with time winding down in the half. Now that preserved the deficit at 17 and made sure that it wasn't any larger as the teams went to their locker rooms. This wasn't completely unknown territory for the 2010 Tigers, though. 3 times that season, they had trailed by double digits only to come back and win the ballgame. Auburn got to work quickly in the third quarter. Newton uncorked a long one to Terrell Zachary, and after 2 missed Tide tackles, it was a 70-yard touchdown. The lead was down to 10. Under 5 to play in the third, Newton led a long, sustained drive down the field and capped it with a quarterback sneak. The lead was down to 3 now. Alabama took advantage of a fumble on a punt, but was only able to turn that into a field goal, so the lead was back up to 6. Another sustained drive by Auburn that included a crucial 4th and 3 conversion led to this play. Here's Vern Lundquist with the call for CBS that day.
Newton back to throw, under some pressure, pulls up, has his man open, caught, Lutzenkirchen. Auburn has claimed a tie in the ballgame.
The PAT would give them the lead 28-27. The Auburn defense went into seek-and-destroy mode after that. They knocked McElroy out of the game, shut down the run game. Backup quarterback Scott McCarron could not connect with his receivers, and that was the ball game. So, some interesting things happened after this one. These are not fan bases that tend to be nice to the other one. Auburn fans draped the Bear Bryant statue outside the stadium in a number 2 Cam Newton Auburn jersey. Well, that became the catalyst to what Alabama fan Harvey Updyke did in the next 48 hours. Updyke lived 13 miles from the Auburn campus, and he hated anything associated with Auburn. He had the misplaced notion that Auburn students celebrated Bear Bryant's death back in 1983 by rolling the Toomer's Corner Oaks. They did not. That is an urban legend. But that misplaced conspiracy theory, coupled with the fact that Auburn fans desecrated the statue with the Cam Newton jersey, he ratcheted up the hatred and he went way over the line from athletic supporter to tree killer. Auburn's Toomer's Corner is the gateway to the campus. 2 old-growth oak trees stood at Toomer's Corner back in 2010. They were well-known and well-beloved. When Auburn won a football game, the trees got rolled with TP. It was a tradition. So what Updyke did was pour 4 gallons of a powerful herbicide around the base of the 2 Toomer's Corner oaks in an effort to kill them. And then he confessed to his crime as a caller into the Paul Feinbaum show the following January, disguised as a caller Al from Dadeville. Updyke was soon identified, arrested, pled guilty, and ordered to pay $800,000 restitution to the university and spend 6 months in jail. When Updyke died in 2020, he still owed more than $790,000. The trees did eventually die, but they have been replaced on the Auburn campus by fully grown oaks.
Are you a hockey fan? Then you'll love Eric Zweig's new book, Hockey Hall of Fame True Stories 2. It's a treasure trove of untold tales, bizarre incidents, and captivating trivia that will leave even the most devoted puckhead astounded. The intense rivalries, epic showdowns, and historic clashes that shaped the NHL's early years, it's all in there. Zweig uncovers the true stories that helped shape the sport, ensuring that you will never look at hockey the same way again. Check out Hockey Hall of Fame True Stories 2 on Amazon or wherever fine books are sold.
All right, we've had controversy, a comeback.
Don't call it a comeback.
LL, come on, seriously, that was a comeback. Sheesh, I mean, I love that guy, but he has some very strict rules on what is a comeback and what is not.
All right, so let's see. I was interrupted there. So we controversy, comeback, overzealous fan. We've had that. So how about a little bit of revenge? In the 1998 NFL Draft, Marshall receiver Randy Moss was one of the top prospects. The Dallas Cowboys had the 8th overall pick, and they were interested in him. In fact, Jerry Jones assured Moss that they would be taking him with their first-round pick. But if you'll remember, Moss did have some issues in college. First off, he signed his letter of intent to play at Notre Dame, but after taking part in a fight that had racial overtones at his West Virginia high school, the Irish rescinded their offer. He then committed to play at Florida State, and he had to sit out a year. Before playing it down for the Seminoles, though, he tested positive for marijuana, and Florida State cut ties with him. At that point, if he transferred to another 1A school, he'd have to sit out another year. But going to a 1AA school or lower, he could play right away. So we went back home to West Virginia and enrolled at Marshall. He played 2 seasons for the Thundering Herd, won the Biletnikoff Award, was named an All-American, and he finished 4th in the Heisman voting as a sophomore. Now, there was no question about his talent, but there were some lingering questions about off-the-field issues. And so the Cowboys shied away from taking Moss and selected defensive end Greg Ellis. Moss slipped to the Minnesota Vikings with the 21st pick. At that point, Moss vowed revenge against Jerry Jones and the Cowboys, and his first opportunity came 7 months later on this day in Dallas. It was Thanksgiving, and Moss had already become a star in the league by this point. He had 8 touchdown catches and 2 100-plus yard receiving games. Just 4 days before this one, he'd racked up 153 yards receiving against Green Bay. Just 2 minutes into the game, the Vikings called a flea flicker. Randall Cunningham's pass was a little underthrown, but Moss made the adjustment, caught his first pass, and scored his first touchdown. Under 3 to play in the first quarter, Cunningham reared back and launched another one downfield for Moss, who caught his second pass of the game and scored his second touchdown. With time winding down in the third quarter, Moss was at it again. Here's Pat Summerall calling the action for CBS that day.
The Cowboys showing blitz. Minnesota hits Randy Moss, breaks a tackle, and Randy Moss races down the sideline, and Randy Moss just outruns everybody into the end zone. He is incredible. I think he might be enjoying some turkey. Yeah.
So Randy Moss's stat line for the day was 3 catches, 3 touchdowns, 163 yards receiving. Message delivered. Revenge served up nice and cold. Time now for today's Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. If you happen to be in a room with 22 other people, there is a 50% chance that 2 of those have the same birthday. So, there's your conversation starter next time you're at a party with 23 people. That's all I've got for you today. I'll be back tomorrow with more This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.